If you feel like crying for no apparent reason today, then you're not alone. And you're not crazy. Neuroscience says this is a specific signal, a warning your brain is giving you. Those tears aren't a sign of weakness. There's something that wants to come out from within you. In this video, I'll tell you why this happens. And if you understand this, then maybe you'll stop judging yourself. Let's start with the thing that confuses me the most. Where does this feeling come from when nothing has even happened? But first, be sure to subscribe to the channel and like the videos. You tell yourself nothing is wrong. The day was normal. Nobody hurt you. Nothing terrible happened. And yet, your chest feels heavy for no clear reason. You stare at your phone longer than usual. Music sounds different. A random sentence hits harder than it should. Then suddenly your eyes start filling with tears. And the strange part is not the sadness. It's the confusion, because you don't even know what you're crying about. Most people think crying only happens when something obvious breaks inside you. A breakup, loss, failure, bad news. But the human brain rarely works that cleanly. Sometimes you cry not because something happened today, but because your mind finally became quiet enough to feel what it has been carrying for weeks. And that changes everything. There's a specific kind of exhaustion that doesn't feel dramatic. You still go to work. You still answer messages. You still laugh at things. From the outside, your life looks functional. But internally, your nervous system has been under pressure for so long that emotions stop moving normally. Psychologists sometimes call this emotional suppression, not because you consciously choose to hide feelings, but because your brain prioritizes survival over emotional processing. When stress stays active for too long, the brain shifts resources toward functioning, toward getting through the day, completing tasks, maintaining stability, and emotions get postponed, not deleted. Postponed, like unopened letters piling up in another room. This is why some people suddenly cry while washing dishes, or during a quiet car ride, or after someone asks, "Are you okay?" The tears are rarely about that exact moment. The moment simply became emotionally safe enough for the backlog to surface. And what makes this confusing is that modern life trains you to disconnect from emotional signals constantly. Your attention is always occupied, scrolling, notifications, work, noise, content, deadlines. The brain never fully slows down long enough to process unresolved emotion until one small crack appears. Then everything leaks through at once. There's another layer to this that most people never realize. Sometimes crying without reason is connected to something called emotional incongruence, which means your external behavior and internal emotional state no longer match. You say you're fine, but your nervous system knows you're overwhelmed. You keep acting calm, but your body has already entered chronic stress mode, and the body keeps score long before conscious awareness catches up. Neuroscience shows that emotional processing involves brain regions like the amygdala, anterior cingulate cortex, and insula. But emotions are not experienced only as thoughts. They are physical states: tight shoulders, shallow breathing, mental fog, sudden fatigue, heavy eyes. Your body often notices emotional overload before your conscious mind creates a story around it, which is why people sometimes cry first and understand the reason later. Think of your mind like a house during winter. At first, emotional stress feels manageable. One small box gets placed in the attic, then another, then another. Eventually, the attic becomes overloaded, but daily life continues normally because the rest of the house still looks clean. Until one day, the ceiling starts cracking under weight you forgot was there. The tears are not random. They are structural pressure finally becoming visible. And strangely, people who cry for no reason are often the same people who spent months convincing themselves they had no right to feel overwhelmed because someone else has it worse, because they're still functioning, because they're supposed to be grateful. But the brain does not measure emotional pain morally. It measures pressure biologically. Your nervous system does not care whether your suffering looks justified from the outside. It only responds to accumulated emotional load. This is why high-functioning people often break down unexpectedly. They become so skilled at suppressing emotion that even they lose access to what they actually feel, until the emotion bypasses language completely and exits through tears instead. There's also something else happening underneath this. Loneliness. Not always physical loneliness. Emotional loneliness. The feeling that nobody fully sees the version of you carrying all this weight internally. Humans regulate emotions socially. This is deeply biological. From infancy, the nervous system learns safety through co-regulation. Calm voices, eye contact, reassurance, connection. But when people spend long periods emotionally disconnected, the brain starts holding stress internally without release. And eventually, emotions begin leaking out in strange ways. Random tears, unexpected numbness, emotional sensitivity, feeling overwhelmed by small things. Not because you are weak, but because the brain was never designed to carry everything alone indefinitely. Now here's the part most people misunderstand. Crying itself is not the problem. In many cases, it's actually regulation beginning to happen again. Research suggests emotional tears may help reduce Physiological arousal by activating parasympathetic recovery processes, the part of the nervous system associated with calming down after stress. In simple terms, sometimes tears are the nervous system trying to return home. But many people interrupt this process immediately. They apologize for crying, distract themselves, open social media, force positivity, because vulnerability feels unsafe, especially for people who learned early in life that emotions create discomfort, rejection, or shame. So instead of listening to the emotion, they silence it again. And the cycle repeats, which raises an uncomfortable question. If your tears are trying to tell you something, what exactly have you been avoiding hearing? Maybe exhaustion, maybe grief that never fully processed, maybe loneliness hidden under productivity, maybe anger you never allowed yourself to feel, or maybe you simply haven't stopped moving long enough to notice how overwhelmed you actually are. This is where emotional awareness becomes important. Not dramatic self-analysis, just quiet observation. Psychologists call this affect labeling, the process of identifying emotional states with language. And surprisingly, studies show that naming emotions reduces activity in the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center. In other words, when you can accurately say, "I think I'm emotionally exhausted," the nervous system often becomes less reactive, because uncertainty itself creates stress. So what do you actually do when these unexplained emotions appear? Not quick fixes, not good vibes, something slower, more honest. First, stop asking, "Why am I crying over nothing?" And start asking, "What has my mind been carrying quietly?" That small shift matters psychologically, because it moves the brain from self-judgment into self-observation. Second, pay attention to timing. Emotions often surface after pressure ends, not during it. After exams, after work, late at night, during weekends, the nervous system delays emotional processing until survival tasks feel complete, which means your breakdown may actually be delayed emotional release, not emotional weakness. Third, reduce emotional noise. Not permanently, just enough to hear yourself again. A quiet walk without headphones, 10 minutes without scrolling, writing one honest sentence before sleep. These moments reactivate interoception, your brain's ability to notice internal states. And many people are emotionally disconnected simply because constant stimulation drowned out self-awareness. Fourth, allow incomplete emotions. Not every feeling arrives with a clear explanation. The brain processes emotion in layers. Sometimes the tears come first, understanding comes later. Trying to force immediate answers can actually increase anxiety, because the mind starts inventing explanations too quickly. Sometimes your only job is to stay present long enough for clarity to emerge naturally. And finally, notice what consistently makes you emotional. Not just sad things, moments of kindness, silence, music, certain memories, specific conversations. These emotional reactions are clues. The nervous system points toward unresolved needs through emotional sensitivity. Your tears are not always signs of damage. Sometimes they reveal where your emotional life has gone numb, and where it still wants connection. So maybe the real question is not, "Why do I feel like crying for no reason?" Maybe the real question is, how long have I been emotionally translating everything into productivity, distraction, and survival? Because emotions rarely disappear. They wait, quietly, patiently, until your mind becomes still enough to hear them again. And when the tears finally arrive, it may not mean you're falling apart. It may mean something inside you no longer wants to stay emotionally invisible. You do not need to solve every feeling immediately. You do not need a perfectly logical explanation for every emotional wave. Sometimes being human means carrying emotions your conscious mind has not fully caught up to yet. And maybe healing begins the moment you stop treating your tears like evidence of weakness and start seeing them as messages from parts of yourself that have been unheard for too long.